Oi! That's what he said. There we were, trying to lead the people of Israel, a position of honor, a position of power, a position of prestige. The people respected us. We had the responsibility of governing the people of Israel. And he comes along. This nobody from Nazareth points his finger at us and says, "Oi!" 7 times. 7 times he says to us, "Woe! Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees and hypocrites." How dare he say that to us? Who is he? Who is he to say these things to us, the people of Israel, the leaders of the people of God? Caiaphas, by the way, in case you don't know who I am, Caiaphas, high priest of Israel. Caiaphas, the leader of the Sanhedrin, the great Sanhedrin that meets in the room of the hewn stones every single day to lead, to govern, to judge. We have a great responsibility. And to sit on the great Sanhedrin, 71 elders are chosen from amongst the people by their connections, by their prestige, by their power. It's not just anybody, not just nobodies like this so-called teacher from Nazareth. When he first came onto the scene, I had heard rumors. I had heard gossip going back and forth, talking about the so-called miracles that he was performing. Walking on water. Really? Have you ever heard of anybody walking on water before? Feeding 5,000 people with a few loaves of bread and some fish. These weren't miracles. They were tricks to deceive the people. It was our responsibility to keep the people in check and to hold at bay the Romans who, if they heard of this unrest and possible insurrection, if they heard that maybe there was a new Messiah, they would come with their legions and obliterate our nation and our people. That was the responsibility that I carried as the high priest for the people. I was appointed in AD 18 under Gaius Valerius. You've never heard of him before, but he was the governor of Judea prior to Pontius Pilate. He chose me because I was the son-in-law of the former high priest by the name of Annas. Annas, who was still alive when this teacher was walking around. Annas, who, when we finally captured and caught this teacher, we carried him to the house of Annas to be judged, to be condemned, because Annas had great power and respect amongst the people. And then they brought him to me before the Sanhedrin, and I knew I now finally had him in my grasp. We had tried before to capture him, to discredit him when he was there in the temple just days ago, days before the Passover, teaching the people. We sent people over to ask him questions, to try and trap him, to try and discredit him, but this is a wily one. Every single question we asked, he had an answer. And the more questions we asked, the more we looked foolish in front of the people. This could not pass. And so we decided the only thing we could do was to trap this man, to capture this man, and to put this man to death. And so we met with one of his disciples, one of his followers, the man by the name of Yehudas. Yehudas, you know him as Judas. We enticed him to come to the temple courts, and there we sat down with him, we met with him, and we offered him 30 pieces of silver if he would betray Jesus. Do it by night. Do it under cover of darkness. Do it so that nobody would know. Because if the people saw that we were being mean to Jesus, that we were trying to put him to death, there might be some kind of a riot, an insurrection. The people might actually throw stones at us. Can you believe that the people would actually rise up against us, the leaders of Israel? And so we did it at night. We brought him before the Sanhedrin, there into the house of hewn stones, and we heard the accusations leveled against him. We managed to dig up all kinds of witnesses. Some said this, but none of them agreed according to Old Testament law, according to the law of Talmud given by God to Moses. We had to have at least 2 witnesses whose stories would agree with each other, and we could find none. The best we could do was find 2 witnesses who remembered him saying, "Tear down this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up again." Tear down this temple that took 42 years to build, this beautiful house of God, he is going to destroy. What does this mean? I finally asked him, "Are you the Son of God?" "I am," he said. "I am." We as Jewish people, we as people of God, we do not utter these words, because when Moses met God there in the burning bush in the wilderness, he asked God, "Who can I say sent me? What is your name?" And God replied, "I am." And so by Jesus saying this, he committed blasphemy in the presence of the entire Sanhedrin. "Blasphemy," I cried out, "blasphemy." I was so overcome with anger and rage that I even grabbed my coat and tore it in 2 to demonstrate to everyone there, I am filled with rage against this man. He is deserving of death. But because of the Romans, we could pass any sentence we chose except the death penalty. The Romans would have to judge him. The Romans would have to condemn him to death. And so I sent Jesus to Pontius Pilate, who happened to be a good friend of mine. When he was standing there before Pontius Pilate, I could see that he was vacillating, thinking to himself, maybe I will let this man go. Maybe I'll just punish him, whip him a little bit, and then send him back into the crowds, back into the country, wake him up from his dreams. And I could see that Pilate was about to let him go. And I knew that Pilate wanted the title Friend of Caesar. And so I cried out, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Caesar's." And the next thing I knew, Pilate was washing his hands. "I am innocent of the blood of this just man." And I watched as the soldiers led him away into the praetorium, and there they abused him, they mocked him, they ridiculed him just as he deserved for attacking us in our position of power and prestige amongst the people. And then I saw him carry his cross to Calvary's Hill, and I watched as the Roman soldiers laid him upon that cross and drove the nails through his flesh, and then elevate that cross where he hung there on top of Calvary's Hill. And I thought, now is the perfect time for my revenge. I walked up and shouted at him. He said he is God's son. Let's see if God will rescue him now, if God will have anything to do with him. And then I was shocked and surprised when Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." The soldiers mocked Jesus. The people standing at the foot of the cross mocked Jesus. Even the 2 thieves, the 2 bandits nailed on either side, they hurled insults at Jesus Christ. And then I heard Jesus cry out, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. Listen. Listen, I said. He's calling for Elijah. The Old Testament prophecy which says that Elijah will return prior to the coming of the Messiah. Could it be? Could it be that Elijah is hearing him from heaven and that Elijah will return and that this could possibly be the one spoken of in the Old Testament? Could this be the anointed one? Will Elijah return? Let's wait and see if Elijah will come. But Elijah did not come. Finally, Jesus said, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. And he breathed his last. And when he breathed his last, suddenly the ground shook and quaked and split open. Could this potentially be a fulfillment in the prophecy in the book of Zechariah, chapter 14? Read it. Read it for yourself this afternoon. Zechariah chapter 14. I fled. I was terrified. I was horrified. I went back to the temple, and there I discovered that the ground had split in two, that the temple which divided the Holy of Holies from the rest of the temple had split in two, been torn in half from top to bottom, and now for the first time in human history, everybody could see inside the Holy of Holies. What does this mean? I have no idea. This Jesus was dead, and his followers had come and taken him down from the cross and laid him in a grave, and they put a stone in front of the grave. And I got to thinking, what if his followers, his disciples, come and steal the body away? Because this Jesus said that he will rise from the dead. They will come, they will steal his body, and they will tell the story that he has risen from the dead, and people will believe. I went to Pilate and I said, post a guard, and a group of Roman soldiers went and put a seal upon the stone, and they stayed there night and day, making sure that no one would come and open that grave. But lo and behold, on Sunday I heard the body of Jesus was gone. And I met with the soldiers, and I told them, when you make your report to the governor, Pontius Pilate, you tell them you fell asleep, and that his followers came and stole his body while you were sleeping. Oh, no way, they said. If we do that, if we say that we were sleeping on duty, we will be put to death. That is the punishment of falling asleep on your post. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, I said. Pilate and I are good friends. I will convince him that all is well. And I even gave them a large sum of money, which they accepted. And this story that the soldiers fell asleep is circulated amongst the Jews to this day. They say that Jesus rose from the grave, that he overcame death in the grave. And over the years, I've watched this movement grow. I've seen this story spread far and wide, that more and more people are believing in Jesus as the Messiah, even when we capture their disciples and whip them and beat them and cast them into prison and heap all kinds of humiliation and insults upon them. They refuse to stop telling the story of Jesus, the Christ. Is it possible? Is it possible that he is the Messiah? That he will come again one day to judge the earth? For you, that will be a day of joy, a day of happiness, a day of fulfillment as Jesus gathers all his followers to come and live with him for all eternity in paradise. But for me, it will be a day of woe, a day in which I will say, Oi.